Welcome, everybody. This is our third episode of Mind Expansion Guest. And as you know already now, every time we invite one of the sensors, so one person from the community, to share something that they're particularly passionate about or some of their knowledge, experience, whatever they think might be relevant for the rest of the community. And we particularly love this format of Mind Expansion because it's definitely made by the community for the community. And so our guest today is the lovely Nat Rich. Nat, would you like to introduce yourself briefly? Who are you? And maybe also, how long have you been in the network, or have you known the Sense network? Tell us.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me today. I really appreciate it. And my name's Nat Rich. I'm an entrepreneur and a bit of a YouTuber and a presenter, and very interested in the Sense Network. I've known around, I think it was about 5 or 6 months now. My friend Joel J. Brave, you might know him as, or Joel Brevet, he introduced me to you guys, and I thought it was a fabulous network. So I'm very honored to be here again, and we've done a podcast already, which I was happy with. And I'm just very happy to be here.
That's lovely. And yes, you're right. And we're going to put a link to the podcast in the text of this article. At the time, the main focus, if I'm not wrong, was all about the healing power of sound, which is definitely a very interesting topic. So if you haven't listened to the podcast already, just check on the link below. But today we're talking about something different. Is that right? Because there are so many ways that we can actually fine-tune our wellness. So what topic would you like to share with us today? What are you gonna teach us today?
I would love to talk about finance and our kind of relationship and our resistances to money and to the awkward shame that people go into around finance. I think it's a really important subject right now, and it doesn't mean that I'm loaded from this space that I'm talking from, but it definitely is a conversation worth having around finance and around being in reality and facing what's real.
Why do you think this topic is particularly important, and why is it important for you? Is there something related to, we're coming towards the end of the year. For many people, it's also a time of holidays, of buying gifts. So definitely finance is something in our mind, but for other people, it's like closing the balance here. And also maybe there is another conversation to be done with the way women approach finances in the financial world. So what angle do you think is more interesting and personal to you?
So I feel personally around finances, it's been one of my biggest bugbears over the course of my life. I've gone into lots of money and no money and dribs and drabs of money, and the consistency around money has been very difficult for me. And my inability to be able to face what was real, which was sometimes a lack of integrity around money, or maybe lack of having some and then not being able to show up because I felt shame or embarrassment. And I definitely know that I'm not the only one. I'm sitting here on an island in Ibiza in Spain, and it's an incredible island. It's full of amazing people that are doing incredible things, but one of the consistencies on the island is that there's this term exchange, so where you would exchange your services for someone else's services, but actually we live in a money-based environment and we need money to survive. And the spiritual approach of having an exchange, yes, is interesting, and it can be good if people want to exchange and they feel the value, but quite often what people are looking for is money in order to be able to create safety and to sustain a positive outlook in their life, and to be able to avoid the fears of shame and embarrassment and traumas and stress and fear. And I think it's really important, world over, whether it's just me here in Ibiza or whether you're, somebody that's chasing money in New York. The idea is that money to a lot of people is a bad thing. Some people are like, oh, I don't want too much money, or if you have money you change, or I don't like people with money, and we push money away so many times. And the reason that we do this is usually because we don't have the capacity to be able to handle the overwhelm that money brings. And that overwhelm could be positive excitement, it could be the frivolousness, it could be you wanted to go and do absolutely anything in the world, and you think, yeah, that's great, but a lot of people don't know how to handle that much joy and that much energy. And then sometimes people think if you've got money, you're not going to have many friends, you're not going to be liked. They also can't handle the bad side of what they think is going to come with the money, all of which is an assumption, all of which is a story in the mind. But the actual practicalities of having money and bringing in that money to keep you safe is very real. And I think we have a very big position at the moment in the world where we're fighting our relationship to money, and it causes us from my own experience, it's caused me the most amount of pain. And I'm definitely not the only one.
No, for sure. It's definitely a conversation that it's important to have, even in like personal relationship, like when you're a partner and you're sharing finance, there is so much, it's a very loaded conversation, let's say, because as you say, it's all about the assumption we have around money, the meaning we assign to money and finance in our life. And also maybe there's something to be said about our communities being into like creative intelligence. And I feel that from my experience, for creative people, it's even harder because they need to convert the value of their creativity or their art output in something that is very tangible, like a prize. And that can really trigger a lot of insecurity. So is there any way to overcome that and feel like confident in stating your, your prices and your tariff and the way you want to be seen in the world from that perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's two things that I feel are really important around money. One is absolute honesty, like radical, honest review of where you're at. Hiding from money and sweeping under the carpet or hiding from bills and people that you owe money to is a really detrimental place to be. You're avoiding reality, which means that you're not willing to face what is, which means you'll never be able to create something true to you because you're lying to yourself and you're lying to other people. So facing what is true, whether that's getting a spreadsheet out and writing down everything that you owe, the date that it's coming out, what, where it's going to, what bank it's coming from, are you late, how much do you owe, over the last few months, having that clear perspective of just what's been and gone up to today can actually reduce an incredible amount of overwhelm because you're coming into what's real. Doesn't mean you necessarily have the money straight away once you've organized a spreadsheet, but to actually know what is real is a really powerful place to put yourself into. And then the other aspect of that is being able and willing to tell other people about your situation, being willing to share how you truly feel. I've sat there, not able to pay rent sometimes and feeling really uncomfortable. And, for me, it's been very difficult because we attach money to our self-worth and to who we think we are. And then we think people aren't going to love us or like us because we don't have that money. And actually, a lot of the times that's not true. And it's about being honest with where you're at and saying, I don't have money, but I can bring this as a value, or this is just my situation. Can you help? That's a huge, huge conversation that is really, not many people willing to ask for help. So hiding your shame or your guilt makes it worse. We compound our dark thoughts, and not being able to share that with friends and loved ones and sometimes strangers can be really difficult. And sometimes I've found that if I've said to someone, look, I can't afford to pay, this is what I can do, or I can't afford to pay, I just don't have the money right now, people accept that you don't have the money. But when we avoid someone's call or email, or we refuse to face it, then they start to hate you and they start to think, who is this person? And then they see you maybe on social media and they see you going out and they're like, well, they can afford to do this, and they can afford, not knowing whether you can afford to do it or not, they assume that you can. And one of the things I remember, one of my times I was owing someone some money in the past, and they were like, oh, but you're all over Ibiza. And I'm like, you have no idea how free my life is here. Like, you don't know how I live and how I operate here because of who I have been in the past and what I've helped other people out with. So lots of favors were owed and I was getting lots of favors back.
That's super interesting. And I was wondering, how did it work for you personally? So how was your journey into understanding and reframing your approach to money and finance?
Right. Yes. Okay. So you slightly cut out then. I was like, no, don't go anywhere. But we're good. Okay. So my approach to reframing my kind of relationship to finance, I think I used to think that I was like money in a sense of if I didn't have it, I would feel really down. I'd feel like my self-worth was attached to it. And I'd be like, oh my God, this is terrible. And actually, we're not actually the money or necessarily the product ourselves. It's just a circumstance that we're currently going through. And if we can pull ourselves away from it and unattach ourselves from the feeling of that lack, which is very difficult to do sometimes, it's a really tricky thing to kind of get your head around. But once you define that it's your circumstances and it's just your situation and it's the way you relate to it, it becomes less personal and you become less, heavy with it. And you can actually separate yourself sometimes for a longer period of time. It doesn't happen all the time, but you can separate yourself and put yourself from the other side and say, okay, this is not fundamentally who I am at the core. This is just a situation. This is what's going on. And I can change it because I'm outside of it, rather than, oh my God, I'm in it. It's me. I'm terrible. I'm not worth anything. I'm in lack. It's like this whole personality that we adopt is like a victim mentality that we adopt when we don't have what we're looking for. And it's not really what's happening. It's just that our framing at that time is incorrect. So it's about stepping back and saying, okay, without the money, do I still exist? Without the money, who am I? Without the money, am I okay? Am I going to die today? Is there a survival issue? You know, like there's a real kind of immediate, probably not, you know, probably there isn't, you know, massive survival issues. And if there is, there's another situation for that. But generally day to day, we don't have the major financial troubles that we think. We just focus on the lack more than we focus on the gratitude.
That's very wise. And when I think about this wisdom, I'm wondering, how was your journey through this? Did you have some kind of breakthrough? Did you meet along your journey, like interesting masters or books or something that help you reshift and reframe the perspective in a more like supportive way?
Well, I really value Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations, because they help you to reframe your mind and to reframe how you feel and think about things, and to program the life you would wish you would like to have. And, you know, using powerful techniques and sitting in meditation and really just attaching yourself to the scenario that you don't want to be in, and then flipping it and putting yourself in the scenario you do wish to have. So it's a very kind of good mind game that you can play with yourself in the mornings of Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations. For like, you can do 15-minute ones, you can do 30-minute ones, all of which are amazing, but they help you to come into reality and then to flip it, which is very interesting. Rather than trying to avoid reality and just pretend that you want something different, it really often helps for you to come back into what's real, which is, today I don't have what I would like, but that's okay, because I'm going to flip it and I'm going to, you know, make something of it. And for my own personal journey, you know, I'm still not, you know, a millionaire, billionaire. I'm still not financially, you know, secure in many ways with how I would have liked to have seen myself by this age. But I do understand that owning what's real and the shame and the embarrassment is the most important part. So a lot of people say that, you know, if you're imagine that you're in a circle of like a spiritual circle, when they all talk about, you know, this is a safe space and you can say anything you want and no one's going to know outside of the circle. And I always think that's an illusion, because you're never in control of what anybody in that circle will say once they leave. So it's a very kind of strange scenario that I feel that, you know, worked for me is that just being radically honest when you have no money, being willing to say that to anyone at any given time is freedom. If I'm trying to hide that part of my life from someone, or I'm pretending that, you know, someone's not going to share that information once I've told them, that's an illusion. And we're fearing what other people think of us, which is quite debilitating, really. So it's about getting really comfortable with what the discipline is that you need to have, what the reality situation is that you don't have what you want, but can you talk to people openly about it? Because if you can free yourself of that restriction and that shame and that embarrassment and that victim mentality, then you're opening the space and the chance for it to come to you.
I think what you just said linked nicely with what you were saying in the beginning about not being in denial of our financial situation, because sometimes that's where the problems start, when we're trying not to see what's happening, not to see the reality, and then we're not in the right position to really create a change because we're not even facing what is. What is the best way for you to come to terms with our financial reality? Is there any way to do it so that it's not another source of anxiety or stress, but something that we can, you know, interact with in a more like mature and serene way?
I think being honest with someone else, like say if you've got a friend that you can share things with, someone that you feel that you can trust, would be really useful. Try not to choose somebody that you're going to tell that would judge you, or that has, you know, their own financial difficulties necessarily, that may, you know, impart their own feelings onto you, which could make it a bit more, you know, a bit worse. But, you know, I think the important part is that there is no real right or wrong way. It's like, are you ready to be honest with yourself? Yes or no? Are you ready to face what's true? Yes or no? Are you ready for people to see you where you don't really want to be seen? Yes or no? That doesn't come at the most perfect time. And usually the anxiety and the anger and the shame and the embarrassment, whatever we feel, is actually, you know, life pointing to us where we need to heal. So it's not a bad thing that you go into anxiety. It's not bad that you go into shame. It's important for you to feel what that feels like so you can heal the trauma and the wound around it. So there's no perfect way to have this conversation that's not going to be awkward. And that's the willingness to go into your uncomfortable part, is, can I face what is true? Yes or no? And if you're willing to, it's going to be awkward, but it's going to be transformational at the same time.
Wow, I believe so. is this something you support people into doing? I mean, we were focusing now on the financial part, but I assume there are many other areas in which you can have that kind of like fear of facing the truth and then working through it to where you want to go. Is there any support you offer for this?
There is, yeah. We're going to put a group in the Sense Network, which will be amazing. So anybody wants to follow me in there, that would be great. And I do YouTube videos and I'm on LinkedIn as well. So, you know, my cat's here. Sorry, I'm hoping he doesn't come on screen.
It's always a good sign.
Yeah. For me, it's not about supporting people through their lack of finance. It's supporting people through their uncomfortable moments. And that could be anything. So it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be about your cash flow. It could be about your awkward conversation with your boyfriend or your parent or your friend. However you feel awkward or uncomfortable, I'm really good at hosting spaces to be able to get people to go into that in a shared experience so they feel alone. And you usually find that other people will have very similar scenarios, maybe a different story, but they'll be feeling the same feelings. So that's where your compassion comes in and your kind of connected feeling person in the group that's on their own. It just doesn't seem to happen like that. So hosting groups and spaces is what I love to do, and get people to go through that process together in a group is the best way to move forward.
That's very interesting, because actually this is the spirit of the community of the Sense Network. The idea is that creativity or any gift you want to share with the world, it should have like a supportive environment so that you can really allow yourself to experience it in the company of kindred souls, if you will. So I really like the fact that you're incorporating this idea of having a network around you whenever you have facing big changes in your life, because you feel like you're not alone. You can see that the same like vulnerability that you addressed before is something that we're all part of, and maybe it's just a matter of finding a place where you can let your defenses go down and really show up the way you are. And if you have somebody modeling that behavior, maybe it's a bit easier, because you say, oh, okay, so we can really let go and be ourselves and share even the part of us that we are a bit ashamed of. Maybe just because
seeing that in someone else is so breathtaking. Sometimes you're like, oh my God, it's not just me. Oh my God, thank you. And it really gives you that permission to own your part. So yeah, group work is amazing. And I love hosting. I mean, there's not many things I haven't done really. I've been in some of the most awkward and uncomfortable conversations and situations. And I'm happy to share it, you know, for fun and humor and for people to relate to. So they're not the only ones, because that's being the first is always awkward, but it's what's true sometimes. It's just, you have to share it in the moment.
Yeah, and then it's a positive domino effect. No, if somebody opens up, then that will create the right environment for other people to actually add their experiences. So I'm super stoked and happy that you're opening this community inside the community, because we like to have this little like galaxy of communities now in the Sense Network. So I'm really super happy that we're starting with something that is so valuable for people, and that will take some of the stigma away about having insecurities on finance. But you can feel free to broaden the approach if it's possible. So I'm going to put all the relevant link on the article below this video. But if there's anything that you think people can start doing, maybe to get to know you better, or to have an experience about the kind of work they're going to have in the group, and you want to share it now, it would be a nice starting point to delve deeper into this.
If anybody wants to go onto my YouTube, it's Where's Nat At on YouTube, and you can check that out. And you can also check Nat Rich on LinkedIn. I'll be hosting funny and awkward conversations every Wednesday on LinkedIn around lunchtime in the UK. And we're going to be hosting lots of different conversations with people about their vulnerability and their awkwardness in and out of business. And then also my YouTube channel, go down there, search for the videos we talk about stealing, shame, cheating. What else have we got? We've got finance, we've got sex, we've got open relationships, anything that is like you can go down the rabbit hole on that. And I'm currently going through my journey of giving up sugar, which is slightly uncomfortable, and it's bringing up a lot of emotions for me. So I'm tracking that at the moment, and bearing all on YouTube.
Wow, that's really powerful. And I was thinking that since, as we said in the beginning, we're approaching the end of the year, and now, especially financially, people really feel like, am I able to, celebrate with friends and have this moment, even if I don't have much money? Do you think it's possible to just give a message to the people how you can actually in a sense, nurture this sense of abundance, even if your bank balance says otherwise?
I would say, rather than looking for what's in your bank, looking for what's around you and being grateful for it. And I mean that in the most sincere way. What do you have? It's not what you don't have. It's what do you have? And that could be family, friends, that could be clothes on your back, a phone to watch this on. It could be a laptop. It could be a view. It could be, you know, an important conversation, a child. There's so many things that we do have. You know, I'm not living in lack. There's abundance of gravel over there on the drive. There's an abundance of wood from the doors, from the table, from, you know, fruit. I can't stop eating fruit at the moment because it's all I can eat pretty much. So,
with sugar.
and abundance of fruit. And, you know, there's so much abundance everywhere we look. And even I'm guilty of just looking at the lack. And it honestly, it's like, it's the worst thing for me. If I'm not working out in the morning and doing meditation and looking after myself, I go into a serious space of lack, and it's uncomfortable. And I've been guilty of that just in the last week of, you know, having lower back pains and being like, oh, not great. And then a friend of mine saying, are you working out at the moment? I was just like, no, I'm just working out, because that will make all the
I'm
difference.
working out on complaining, okay?
Working out on complaining and being a this week. But it's true, it's, you know, I'm certainly not perfect in any way, shape or form, but I am honest, you know, and that's a big difference. You don't have to be perfect. As long as you're honest, things can get better.
That's a great message to wrap up our little conversation, because I am sure that this message will resonate with a lot of people, and being honest is probably something that it's requires some bravery in the beginning, but then it kind of open up so many doors. So, and I think that the journey you share with us already points in some of the you know, positive effects that can come from opening up with ourselves first, and then with other people in a community setting. So I'm really happy that we're starting this journey for the sensor. And of course, go and check all the links that we're putting so that you get to know a little bit better. We'll put the podcast and our YouTube channel, but then circle back and enter the community. We're going to share that so that you can start interacting and have this honest, free of judgment place where you can really bring all of yourself, and Nat will take care of you with the kindness that she has.
Oh, I just remembered one more thing. I also created a quiz that I did for myself, and it's called a scorecard, and it's called basically how to unfuck my life. And I know some of you might not like swearing, but if you're willing to see how fucked you are in life and you're willing to answer the questions, have a look at the scorecard and find out where you are in your life. And then if you're interested in being supported, then I can help you.
I'm gonna do it as soon as we finish this conversation. See, honesty and random encounters. So it's
always, that's what happens in Ibiza. Honesty and random encounters.
It's a spirit of community. Nat, thank you so much. A big hug to you, and thank you for just shining this little light, which is very important, on how to rebuild our relationship with abundance and financial wellness. It's a nice journey. I'm happy that we're starting it now, and thank you. And I'm sure that it will be very beneficial with a lot of people. So I'm so happy that you're with us.
The opportunity. I really appreciate it. Thank you.